Welcome to Newshour. Tonight we begin with an extraordinary legal and geopolitical standoff between Sudan and the United Arab Emirates. With famine sweeping Darfur, millions displaced and a civil war tearing the nation apart, the stakes are now global. Khartoum has taken an unprecedented step, accusing Abu Dhabi of complicity in genocide at the International Court of Justice. Well, Sudan claims that the UAE supplied arms to the notorious Rapid Support Forces, who it says are responsible for ethnic massacres in Darfur. The UAE denies this, calling the case political theatre. But this week, a dramatic twist. The UAE says it intercepted a private aircraft carrying 5 million bullets, allegedly bound for Sudan's army, disguised as sugar. Well, among these named former Sudan intelligence chief Salah Ghosh. Sudan calls it a smear, insisting that the UAE, who is funneling weapons, citing UN findings on Bulgarian mortar rounds traced to RSF hands. With the ICJ ruling due on May the 5th, tensions are boiling over. Well, tonight we examine the evidence, hear from voices on the ground, and ask what are the regional consequences of a ruling that could reshape international accountability. First, though, let's take a look at how we got here.
Sudan's descent into chaos can be traced back to the power vacuum left after the fall of longtime ruler Omar al-Bashir in 2019. What followed was a fragile power-sharing deal between civilians and military factions. But in April 2023, that uneasy alliance shattered when tensions erupted into open war between the Sudanese Armed Forces, SAF, led by General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, and the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, RSF, commanded by Mohamed Hamdan Dagalo, also known as Hemedti. Initially framed as a power struggle, the conflict quickly escalated into a humanitarian catastrophe. Nowhere has the devastation been more severe than in Darfur, where the RSF, descendants of the notorious Janjaweed militias, have been accused of ethnically targeted massacres, rape, and forced displacement, particularly against the Masalit community. The Sudanese government alleges that the RSF's campaign has been backed by foreign support, specifically the UAE. Sudan took that charge to the International Court of Justice, accusing Abu Dhabi of complicity in genocide. The UAE has rejected the allegations, describing the case as a cynical publicity stunt, and asserting that it lacks legal and factual basis. The UAE also contends that a reservation it made upon acceding to the Genocide Convention in 2005 exempts it from the ICJ's jurisdiction in this matter. The International Court of Justice held public hearings on April 10, 2025, to consider Sudan's request for provisional measures. A ruling on these measures is expected on May the 5th, while a final judgment on the case may take several years. Confrontation that could redefine accountability for international war crimes. As famine spreads and millions remain displaced, Sudan stands at a crossroads, caught between internal collapse and a legal confrontation that could redefine accountability for international war crimes.
Okay, let's head over now to our correspondent Naba Mohadin, as she has the latest reports from Port Sudan.
This fresh accusation by the United Arab Emirates against Sudanese military and the government lands few days before a final decision by the International Criminal Court, ICJ, in The Hague that shall take place on May the 5th regarding the case filed by Sudanese government against UAE of its support of the RSF militia and also being complicit in a genocide in western Darfur against Masalit tribes. This accusations was highly rejected by Sudanese people, the government, and also the military, and they said the United Arab Emirates is trying to manipulate with the public opinion because it's for the first time right now there is a case against this country in the International Criminal Court. The military also said they don't have to smuggle weapons that way, and if they do so, they will not do it through United Arab Emirates as a formal military. They can just ask their allies to send military support and weapons. United Arab Emirates is accused of supporting RSF with weapons financially and also backing them politically. Tensions between Abu Dhabi and Khartoum rose by April 2023 when the Sudanese army and the RSF triggered their first bullet in Khartoum. Then the war spread into other regions. UAE is accused also of using Chad and eastern parts of Chad that bordering Sudan's borders, of sending military troops and also sending weapons to RSF, especially in Darfur region, in Niala and in Al-Fashir. The situation on the ground is escalating, and there is also reports of new and advanced weapons that RSF is using, especially wide-range drones that is highly used to hit infrastructure, including power plants, water plants, and also targeting some displacement camps in Al-Fashir. There is fears that this accusation by United Arab Emirates will add more weight and maybe will delay the final decision of the International Criminal Court. And of course, it will lead to a deadlocked diplomacy between the two countries. Naba Mohadin for News in Port Sudan, Sudan.
Naba, thank you very much indeed. Okay, let's delve deeper now into this topic as I'm joined by Professor Ashok Swain, a scholar and regional expert. Professor Swain, thank you very much for joining us on Newshour. Let's look at this ICJ case then. What's your assessment of the case that Sudan has brought against UAE? Does it have legal weight, or is it more tactical, more symbolic?
Thank you. I think this is some things which International Court of Justice will decide on 5th of May, Monday. It stands the scrutiny of what UAE is claiming, that because it has put some things which is not exact. I mean, Article 9 is a signatory of Genocide Convention, but in Article 9 it has reservations, and so in the reservation it is not supposed to be. I mean, it accepts the Genocide Convention, but if there is a genocide commits genocide, then it will not be subjected to the ICJ. So International Criminal Court. So this is something which we are looking at it, and I think it's a gray line there, because we must understand that on the similar ground, ICJ has given benefit of doubt to the US, Spain, and Rwanda before. So this is one thing, but other side is that many legal experts, international legal experts, are commenting that they should not, the UAE should not be let out of this because of this technical reason. The reason is because UAE has been very much involved in supplying arms to the various non-state actors, not only in Sudan, but also in Libya, in Chad, in Ethiopia. And UAE has been a major, particularly a couple of companies in the last few years have become the major suppliers of arms. And UAE is not producing, doesn't have the arms manufacturing. It gets arms from the different countries, particularly the arms which is the RSF is using, the area, the drones and others, they are manufactured in China, and that has been supplied to UAE. So UAE has been getting the arms from the other countries and supplying to these actors in Africa in general, and particularly in Sudan. And Sudan is experiencing, as your report said in the beginning, a massive humanitarian disasters because of this conflict. And the international community has been, till now, almost failed to contain it. So ICJ has a big role here to play, at least to somehow do something that the international community is serious about doing something about what is happening in Sudan.
Yeah, and we should also say for balance, Professor, that the UAE has also made its own claims, most notably that it intercepted a shipment of 5 million bullets allegedly bound for Sudan's army. Quite a dramatic claim. What do you make of that?
This is quite surprising because, of course, Sudanese army, Burhan, has the support coming from particularly, we know the other regional actors, particularly Egypt and Turkey. So I think in this case, Sudanese army getting the weapons from Bulgaria through UAE doesn't sound very convincing. And it comes at a time just before the court ICJ deals with this case, particularly about supply of arms to the RSF. So this is something which is, I am not sure, this is somebody who has who will be on the ground after proper investigation, but doesn't look very convincing to anyone who is really following this episode and what are the arms and ammunition supply. And but RSF, if you look at it, the Hemedti has a long connections with the UAE, has a business control, lots of business houses in UAE, is the Hemedti's families are doing. So I will be very surprised if the UAE is supplying arms to Sudanese army, or was it through UAE those arms were destined to the Sudanese army.
Professor, let's just delve into that a bit more because it's very interesting. How much control does Hemedti have over the RSF then? The RSF obviously have been accused of atrocities in Darfur. Is there any real accountability in the structure? But
he is the leader of RSF. He is actually of course, there are different factions within the RSF. RSF has also other international support, not only UAE, and that has been that has been discussed before. So there are other actors which are there, the non-Western actors, let's put it that way. But Hemedti, because of his, because he was the paramilitary leader and he is the rebel leader, so under his leadership, at least under his informal leadership, this move is going on. And of course, there are different clans, different areas. There is an attack on the non-Arab groups, and there are different groups that do operate in this kind of situation independently. But I think Hemedti, if he's not in full control, but he is formally the leader of the RSF and the one faction of the civil war which is going on in Sudan.
And on the other side, do you think that the record of the Sudanese armed forces is still good enough for them to claim the moral high ground?
No, that's unfortunately the case, because it is all. Of course, we are all blaming in somehow, or that Hemedti or the RSF is actually doing this, but I think both sides are committed in committing the massive humanitarian crisis, what is happening in Sudan. Sudanese army, it goes back to a long time. They have always in control in power. There was a democratic movement in that country, which was throttled by the Burhan, and the Burhan is actually doing the similar type of, if not worse, the humanitarian crisis he is bringing in order in the areas under his control. So I think both the parties are equally to be blamed for the kind of humanitarian disasters they have brought into the country. This is an internal war, and they are fighting for their own power. It is not for the country, it's not for their people. Both of the parties are fighting an internal war, and that's why they have left these 50 million people in a completely without in a society, in a state where there is no rule of law. Almost half of the population facing huge food scarcity. The health insecurity is really high, and the country is experiencing also almost 15 million people have migrated. 1 in 3 people in Sudan have displaced. So this is not. I mean, we cannot just keep on blaming Hemedti. There's a Burhan is equally to be blamed for this atrocities which is taking place in a country like Sudan.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Of course, across many of the world's big conflicts at the moment, there's a lot of talk of proxies and proxy wars. Let's look at this link between the UAE and the RSF then, Professor. What actual clear evidence is there, are you aware of, that proves that the UAE is actually really backing the RSF in a sustained and comprehensive way?
As I mentioned before, there are business links between the RSF leadership, particularly Hemedti family in UAE. And then there have been reports of the Chinese-made weapons which have been used against the Jamjam camp in Darfur, against the non-Arab groups. And those are the arms Chinese companies has provided to UAE that has not given to other countries. So that has landed up there. So these are some of the proofs which is, of course, it is an open secret into the regional observers in that part of the world that they know that UAE has been from the very beginning, at least for the last 2 years, have been directly engaged in somehow supporting RSF, while Egypt, Turkey have been supporting the Burhan. So it's an open secret. There have been these instances of openly arms being delivered, the areas which are under the control of RSF. So as I mentioned, in a conflict, in these kind of situations, there are otherwise different ways different countries' weapons is coming through UAE, and the UAE is supplying them to RSF.
Challenging situation at the moment for the SAF, of course. What is their objective, their strategic sort of medium-term goal now? Is it military victory? Is it negotiation, or simply survival?
I think SAF, the Sudanese army, just a few months recently got the Khartoum. It took control of Khartoum. It was a big success militarily for the Sudanese army. I think, but the RSF is almost complete control of Darfur region, and that has been always a challenging region. The thing is, while the Hemedti has already constituted a government of its own, so the Sudanese army is in no way showing any intention of really making any negotiated settlement or power sharing arrangement. These are the two powerful actors within Sudan which used to have a power sharing arrangement, and they have 2 years they have destroyed the country, but they don't want to go for the power sharing arrangement. So it's a somehow Sudanese army is actually at present it looks like is hell bent on securing a military victory over RSF. But given the present situations, when the world has almost overlooked that conflict and RSF has already strengthened its position in Darfur, and Darfur being a difficult area for the Sudanese army to keep control for several decades now. So I think we are looking at a virtually another divided Sudan If that is some sort of peace will come, it will be probably a ceasefire between the two actors and the different regions being in their control.
Yeah, different regions you mentioned there. We said at the top of the show that this is increasingly becoming a global conflict, interested actors, widely dispersed now, Western powers, Egypt, Ethiopia, others, interested parties. How do you see those wider actors? How do you see their roles now, and how do you think they might develop in recent months?
I think it's somehow a very complicated, complex relationship is developing because Egypt has issues with Ethiopia over the Nile, and but the army is totally in support of Egypt, and before 2020, at least Egypt and Sudan were on the same wavelength about this big dam which Ethiopia is building. But at present, if Egypt, particularly after this, what happened 2 years back, Egypt's support to Sudanese army is really creating another point of uncertainty for Ethiopia. What will happen to its the biggest dam it's building in Africa? So that's one. But then you see there have been also there is some sort of differences between UAE and Saudi Arab. Saudi Arab is supporting Sudanese army, not direct, but at least indirectly to some extent. Because it has also acting together with Egypt and Turkey. But at the same time, UAE is supporting RSF. So that's also a difference we are seeing in that part. Then the global powers, we see that Russia and China have somehow directly or indirectly, in some extent, are in support of RSF, whereas the Western countries, particularly US, together with Egypt and Saudis, were supporting the Sudanese army. So it's a somehow very complex and very difficult scenario which we are seeing in that part. There is no such division, very clear division, who is supporting what, and I think this is why we are seeing that there is nobody is there who can really act as a certain negotiator, and nobody is seeing any benefits also bringing in peace in Sudan. So I think that's why we are hopelessly and helplessly witnessing this massive humanitarian disaster for the last 2 years.
Yeah, and on that humanitarian disaster, Professor, we've had famine confirmed in Darfur, we've got mass displacement going on, clearly people really suffering. Why do you think the international community has not paid perhaps so much attention to this terrible humanitarian situation?
It's a very important question, but I think what is happening, look, Ajay is mentioning, out of 50 million people, half of the country is facing acute food or some sort of food insecurity. There are 13 to 14 million people have been displaced. Only 3 to 4 million people have left the country. So 10 million people at least have been internally displaced within Sudan. Imagine there is no such international support able to come because of the lack of safety. The airports were being fought like anything. The airports have been destroyed. The ports have been somehow contested. So I think it is somehow the international community, even if it wants, it is security-wise, it's becoming very difficult to intervene. The other thing is, while these two parties are fighting, and there is those international actors who are not party to this conflict, they do not want to legitimize one party or another by entering into areas because they have to get the support of these warring factions to get the international aid in. So I think that's also another reluctant that would not to legitimize any particular actor, whether it is really helping democratization or not, that's another reason. I think, but at the same time, I see that in Sudan is witnessing some sort of support from within the community. We have gone back to the history of the historical support of the community supporting each other. So we are not seeing this mass starvation yet because of the whatever the support they are generating within the community, they are giving it. There is also a diaspora group which is sending some of the resources. Some of the international agencies are also diverting the resources, not through to the government sector, but to these kind of local NGOs or local agencies who are providing the food aid and health aids into the different conflict-prone areas. So I think it's there is a very difficult situation for the international community to get in. While the situation is extremely serious, but at the same time, there is some hope that the community-wise, there is a support within the country to support the people at this time about their own groups. And so that's why we're not seeing the mass starvation, which is you can witness any time. And then also we need to realize that the rainy season is coming soon in Sudan, so there will be a flood. This will really create a much more harm and much more, it will really create much more problems in those Sudanese civilian populations which do not have the food, do not have the water, do not have the health facilities, and many people don't have even the home on their head.
Yeah, a very precarious situation. As you say, not yet mass starvation, some hope, some support available, but nevertheless, the tremendous disruption to normal life, the suffering that so many people are going through. Just bring it to life for us a little bit, Professor. What is life like now for Sudanese people under these conditions?
Actually, those who could leave the country, most of the people, those who have had the resources, have the contacts, and also many of the people, those who had the professional degrees, they have left. Many of them to Egypt, some of them to neighboring countries, but most of them people have left. Out of the 4 to 5 million people have left. The others are, there is a absolutely lack of basic supplies of food, basic supplies of water, electricity. Even in the urban areas, forget about the rural areas. So urban areas do not have those. So, and there is as I mentioned, almost 20 out of 50 million, 25 million people are almost searching every day for food, how to get the food and how to survive that. So the whole infrastructure of the country has collapsed to some extent in that sense, except the clan infrastructure and social infrastructure to some way intact, but otherwise the governance infrastructure, the way we do all sorts of, the providing the supplies and those supports infrastructures have been collapsed. So the Sudan has been moved to Sudan was a poor country, underdeveloped country to many extent, but it has really been pushed to another 50 years backward in that context.
Well, very difficult situation indeed. And Professor, we really appreciate your detailed analysis. Professor Ashok Swain there joining us. Thank you very much indeed.
It's my pleasure. Thank you very much.
Well, as Sudan's generals then trade blame and courtroom battles unfold, the truth remains buried beneath bullets, hunger and broken promises. From accusations of genocide to proxy ambitions, the region watches, and so do millions of Sudanese civilians, waiting not for verdicts, but for peace. Well, that is all we have time for on NewsHour. Please do join anews.tv for plenty more news and analysis. And from all of us on the team here in Baku, goodbye for now.